Hey, this is Rocket Brain Surgeon. Today we're looking at the T29. We're following Garbad around as he's in this Tier 7 US Heavy in a Tier 9 game. I can't remember a time when the T29 was not considered probably the best tank in Tier, or at least one of the best. And when you look at it, it has terrible damage per minute, it's not really too fast, the hull armor is only good for bullying Tier 5s, its alpha is merely okay, and you think, okay, why would this tank be good? And it has everything to do with that awesome turret. The front of the T29's turret is going to be impenetrable to everything except some gold firing 9s, and even then it's not an automatic penetration. Normally some turrets have commander's hatches on them that can be easier to hit and give the tank a little bit more vulnerability, but in the T29's case, that commander's hatch is incredibly difficult for the opponents to hit. There's just a tiny slice that's available, and there's angles all around it, and if you're moving at all, your opponent's really not going to be able to hit that spot reliably. Also, a thing to note is the Mickey Mouse ears on the side of the turret. They do not contain a hitbox. At one time they did have a hitbox, so you could damage the T29 there, but that was removed really early on in the game. The T29 has 10 degrees of gun depression. That's going to be more than sufficient for any map, anywhere. You're going to be able to hide the hull quite reliably, and when you do hide it, you can hold off several opponents. There's just Garbad and his T29 and a couple of M45s behind him, comfortably squaring off against the Wheezy and the Leopard and Super Pershing. Offensively, the T29 is, I don't want to say harmless, but it's not very threatening. The 320 Alpha is certainly not the most amazing thing that you've ever seen. The penetration on the base round at 198 is going to be sufficient for whatever. Garbad's slinging APCR that has a penetration of 245. He's doing that just because he has too many credits and not enough things to spend it on, so why not? The effective aim time is pretty good. The accuracy is not amazing, but that low effective aim time means your exposure to the opponents is going to be really low, and coupled with that strong turret, it's really tough to dig a T29 out of a hull down position. The only real downside to the T29 is that low DPM, which I mentioned before. It is somewhat limiting in that it's hard to bully some opponents. For example, if you come on a KV-1S, not only do you have less alpha than this Tier 6 tank, but you have less damage per minute than this Tier 6 tank, so you can engage what you think is going to be a relatively easy rundown where you just trade shots back and forth of damage, and that can be a very dicey proposition. You're also vulnerable to a one-on-one DPM war with several tanks in tier. For example, the SU-122-44 or the Tiger 1, both common tanks. If you get into a situation where you're just trading shots, the T29 is just going to lose. So a big takeaway for the T29 is certainly to avoid a lot of open spaces. Not only because your hull armor is weak, but also because offensively you just can't trade shots with anybody. You just don't have the firepower to just outgun someone from high health. Oddly enough, I like the T29 in higher tier games more than in lower tier games, because compared to your other tier 7 opposition, you're going to have a larger impact on the battle. The T29 still remains a favorite to this day. Hope you enjoyed. Happy hunting.